Welcome back. Now, as we gear up for the local government elections, the cost of living crisis and service delivery backlogs are likely to weigh on ANC. A DA poll suggests that the ANC, which lost its parliamentary majority in last year's historic election, is likely to receive a beating in the upcoming municipal elections too. Business Day's political editor Hajra Omarjee joins us with her take on how the local government elections are likely to swing. Now, Hajra, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. This is something we've been talking about, right? Issues around water and electricity rates, potholes that are never fixed, robots that don't work. There seems to be, a heightened sense of mistrust in the ANC and government at large. This also very evident at the first National Convention of the National Dialogue this past weekend, where government officials came face to face with ordinary South Africans sharing their lived experiences. And there just seems to be a disconnect.
An absolute disconnect. You've seen the ANC decline in terms of polls since 2014, and yet the party doesn't seem to realize that its image, political perception of it and how it governs, where it governs, is as important as its policies. And there is definitely a growing trust deficit between South Africans and politicians, with no party gaining a majority in most metros in local government elections. And it looks like we are headed for more coalition talks after the next election.
And you spoke about, you touched on that poll, the DA poll that we'll be getting into, the DA's poll revealing that, ANC would not get more than 20% of the vote in Johannesburg if citizens were to vote today. I wonder, Hajra, if we're seeing ANC losing voters, or if we're seeing that ANC voters are perhaps not motivated enough to step out of their houses and head to the polls.
I think it's the latter for sure. You see a lower voter turnout in previous elections, successive elections, and we expect that again to happen in the upcoming election, which could, by the way, happen at the latest in the last Wednesday of January 2027. So not necessarily next year. And I think voters are increasingly disillusioned. The party that gets their vote out gets a more dominance in terms of the number of seats they have in city councils. So if ANC voters stay home and DA voters turn out in mass, which is what we've seen, especially in Gauteng over the last two local government elections, you can expect the DA to benefit from that. And that ANC poll is before the DA sends out its former leader, Helen Zille, to be on the ground. The ANC, of course, opting still to institute a practice of not telling us who the mayoral candidates will be before elections. That decision has not changed, so we can possibly expect Cyril Ramaphosa's face to be plastered on our streets, and South Africans to decide between Ramaphosa, Zille, smaller parties, including the EFF and MK.
Does that do the ANC a disservice as well, as we don't know who the mayoral candidate is? And perhaps let's just give me your reading about ANC losing the vote, particularly in urban areas where, these areas are economic hubs for the country.
Well, we only need to look right in front of us, and that is what the ANC fails to constantly do, to see what is in front of them. In the city of Johannesburg, for example, over 2,000 robots are down. When they do get fixed, they work for 2 or 3 weeks and they're off again for another year. And that is, other than cost of living, the price of electricity, the price of water being passed on to the electorate and the taxpayer, that's the situation that the people of Johannesburg face. Now, this is not the Johannesburg that I recognize. And the ANC has got about a year and a little bit to fix things, or we can expect them to get less than 20% in the polls. The reason we take the DA poll seriously is before we had Ipsos or the SRF doing polling, which was publicly available, parties used to use these institutions to do their polling, and it was generally reliable. So it's going to be an interesting election to watch, because if that poll is correct and governance in the city of Johannesburg around robots, potholes, water, electricity, and the cost of water and electricity is not fixed in the short term, what is going to happen is you could possibly see the ANC in the next decade become a rural party.
Yeah. And I wonder then what the how significant of a move is the SACP deciding to go it alone in next year's local election. We can even zoom into the drift we've seen between the SACP and the ANC and how that also jeopardizes the tripartite alliance.
Well, the SACP has always gotten free cabinet positions because it was thought to be contributing to the ANC's success in winning the majority in elections. And I think for the first time, the ANC saw that the COSATU, through public servants, as well as the SACP, were bringing really nothing to the party in terms of the vote, so that they can no longer demand cabinet posts. But there is a need for a left alternative to perhaps counter the centre-right Democratic Alliance, who wants to do away with economic redress, transformation policies like BEE and employment equity.
Yeah.
So there is a need for a proper left party that's not a facade, that's a real a party that pushes socialism in the country. Whether or not South Africans consider the SACP to be that, I guess we'll see in the last election. I'm glad they've stopped threatening. They have been for the last 20 years, and they're actually contesting. So let's see what they can bring to the party.
It's also been interesting to see what's playing out in the other cities, particularly when it comes to that DA poll, Cape Town in particular, where we are seeing the PA coming right behind the DA, somewhat taking its lunch with expectations of the PA winning more of the coloured talk. Let's talk about the dynamics playing out in that city.
So I wouldn't say it will contest the DA in terms of its majority in the city of Cape Town, but according to the DA's own poll, it could win up to 8% of the coloured vote in the city of Cape Town, which is a significant chunk to be eaten away from the DA. And that's perhaps because although the majority of people in the Western Cape are coloured, that is not reflected in either the leadership of the party or the leadership of the city of Cape Town or the city of the Western Cape, although we would need to do a deeper analysis on the administrations of the city of Cape Town and Western provincial government.
All right, let's leave it there, Hajra. Thanks so much for your time and just sharing your analysis with us this afternoon. Now, that was Business Day's political editor, Hajra Omarjee.